Greetings everyone. Thank you for tuning into Flawed Funkar. In our opening episode, we are blessed to have with us someone who is not just an educator, but a passionate mentor who has inspired countless students to love English. Please welcome Mr. Thompson Vargas. Today's discussion is going to be about his quest to become a high school educator. Why did he choose a road less traveled after graduating from a renowned university, and how hard it is to be an excellent teacher, which he is able to pull off quite effortlessly in his internal journey over the years. In short, in and out of the life of an English teacher and his philosophical journey. Welcome, Thompson, sir. Why don't we start with our viewers getting acquainted with you, sir? You can please tell a bit about yourself.
Um, First of all, thank you, Tarun sir, for considering me as your first guest for Flawed Funkar. Um, a disclaimer to the audience, I have repeatedly told Tarun sir that I may not be the best one to be interviewed. I don't know what takeaways you will probably get from this. In case you find it exceedingly boring, you know who to blame.
Acha, why an educator, sir?
To be honest, it was nothing intentional. So maybe after you reach a stage and you look back, you probably talk about connecting the dots. So today, if I look back, I might be able to figure out some things happening in a preordained manner. But when it all began, I was utterly clueless. So I mean, it was again not really anything intentional. Things just kept happening. So this was in my final year of my master's. One of my seniors had already joined a school, and he as a teacher, and it was my last year. I had not really thought of what I would be doing next, and that's when this college senior appears out of nowhere and says their school is looking for teachers and whether I would be interested in applying for it. I said, और तो कुछ सोचा नहीं है, let's try it out. I had absolutely no idea. I did not get into teaching because I wanted to become a teacher, but then I had no other plans either. So I said yes, went for the interview, got selected, and then, as they say, I never looked back. I enjoyed the experience and I have not considered doing anything else. The other factor was also that this school was in Assam. It was a residential school, and around that time, I felt this would be a good opportunity to visit the Northeast as well. Otherwise, normally हम लोग जाते नहीं हैं Northeast में. So I thought this would be a good opportunity for me to spend some time in the Northeast, maybe travel around. So that was another incentive that made me say yes.
How many years you were there?
I was there for just a year. 1 year. Not really. I joined this school in 2003. My father passed away in 2004. And my mother refused to join me there in Assam. So I came back home. But when I ended my stint at the school there, I did travel around. I went to a few places, Meghalaya and nearabouts. So, yeah.
2003, that means quite years back. So, did you find any difference between the people you worked over there with and the native people of the Assam and
Uh, an interesting thing about my colleagues there were many of these teachers there were roughly my age and they had just begun their teaching career. They were all more experienced in the sense some of them had joined the previous year, some of them had been teaching for 2 3 years.
was it a new school or something?
It was not really a new school. There were senior teachers also, but I somehow got closer to the young batch of teachers there. And most of these teachers were locals. They belonged to various parts of Assam. But we somehow connected really well, and I had a good batch of friends there. Uh, in general, I found the people very warm, very approachable, and it was fun there. The students also were primarily from the Northeast, but yeah. I did not go there with any expectations, and I probably was happy, fortunate to have a good set of people around. as colleagues, as mentors, and also the students. So
And you did your schooling and everything. Up till school, you were here itself,
in Indore, yes. I did my entire schooling from St. Paul's,
St. Paul's, and that is all boys school.
all boys school.
What prompted your family to actually, or was it that time when everything was like ki boys are supposed to be in the all boys school, or
Not really. There were co-ed schools, but then there were in the first place very few schools in Indore, not like today. So there were only a handful of schools, and St. Paul in those days was one of the top schools. So there was St. Paul for the boys and St. Raphael's for the girls. Many of my people that I know, they were all students at St. Paul. So the boys, most of the boys that I know in my neighborhood, church and otherwise, they were all at St. Paul's, and the girls were at St. Raphael. So it was sort of a natural decision. There's an interesting story. My parents often reminded me of this for the interview that happened in nursery. The principal or the vice principal asked me why I wanted to join St. Paul's, and I said, "गुड्डू भैया यहाँ पढ़ते हैं, तो मुझे भी यहीं पढ़ना है." So Guddu Bhaiya was my next door neighbor,
okay?
and yeah,
When I was in school, it was a co-ed school, though it felt like that it's a boys' school. Reason being because up till, I don't know, maybe till class 9th or 10th, I was never good around girls and everything. So it felt like I'm in boys' school. So I wanted to know like what's the difference, like अपन किस तरीके से निकलते हैं बच्चे जो
all boys में पढ़ते हैं. Boys in general tend to be rambunctious. I mean, घर पर भी if you have a son and there's a daughter, you'd probably find the son to be likely to be more on the wild side. So you can imagine a school full of just boys.
Just boys, right?
Class में भी, class के बाहर भी, there used to be a lot of chaos. I honestly don't remember much about the school days, but boys being boys, I mean, this is not surprising.
Okay, and then from there you jump to St. Stephen for graduation as well as post graduation. And you told me that those years were something very different of your life. Like how were they different?
I mean, Delhi and especially St. Stephen's was perhaps the golden ticket, sort of. It was, I mean, all my school life, I lived a very protected, in a protected environment, parents always watching over me. And all of a sudden, there was total freedom. I was entirely on my own. And this entire batch of people around me, they were all very independent. But even more than that, perhaps I grew immensely because of the people that I met, the opportunities that were there, the various clubs that I could be a part of, the general exposure that any college would have provided. I felt, I mean, St. Stephen's did provide me all that. So had I remained in Indore, probably, especially because of that lack of independence, perhaps it may not have had been as effective. So whatever happened, what I am grateful for, of course, the school, but the
For the
college
college
as well.
as well. So was it easy? Because right now, if you talk about getting an admission in DU, it's tough. Maybe because of the competitiveness and everything. Was it easy at that time? Like,
Once again, as I said earlier, things just sort of fell in place. I did not prepare. Stevens in those days was the only college which had an entrance test followed by an interview. In other colleges, all you needed was to clear the cutoff. And Stevens was the only college that I applied.
acha. So
So, I mean, if I'd stayed in Indore, I would. So with me, it has rarely been about what I want to do. I mean, I've never been very sure about what I wanted to do. I am often more clear about what I don't want to do. So, though I had PCM till class 12, engineering was out of the question. I'd already decided that
from shifting from engineering to
engineering was never an option for
but you took PCM, no?
I did.
And from there to MA in
Probably imagine the craze had already begun. So if you're decent enough in academics, the expectation was PCM padhenge, engineer banenge. That had already become the norm. But I somehow did not want to become an engineer. I had already developed a taste for reading, and I thought BA karenge. तो I had sort of decided engineering तो नहीं करना है, इंदौर में BA करेंगे. Somebody said DU में है, ये अच्छा कॉलेज है, why don't you try out? They got me the form also. I said ठीक है, कर लेते हैं. Again, the same thing happened जो असम के बारे में मैंने बताया था. I thought there's nothing to lose. At least I will get to be in Delhi for a while. थोड़ा घूम के आ जाएंगे, इंटरव्यू दे देंगे. आना तो इंदौर में ही है.
अच्छा आना वापस इंदौर
हाँ तो इनफैक्ट आई हैड नॉट एक्सपेक्टेड टू गेट एडमिशन देयर. तो मैं उस हिसाब से गया था कि एटलीस्ट इस बहाने आई विल गेट टू बी अवे फ्रॉम होम फॉर अ शॉर्ट वाइल, एटलीस्ट वो इंटरव्यू के लिए. तो थोड़ा दिल्ली साइट सीइंग करके इंदौर में किसी कॉलेज में पढ़ लेंगे. दैट वाज probably what was going on in my mind. But then I got through. There was a test followed by an interview, and I got through. And I guess
And this, sir, like during this entire part from your school life till college life, how was your friend circle and everything?
I guess I've always been sort of a recluse. I've not had a very large group of friends. Fortunately, again, I've always had friends. I've never been without friends, but and I've never been lonely or isolated in that way. Even in school, I had a handful of close friends. College में भी 2-3 friends थे. It was never a large group.
Define a friend for you. Like, how do you define a friend?
That's a tough one, and I believe we all.
Whom do you consider like this is the one I could call friend?
I believe it's more than just who you spend time with, but maybe someone you are comfortable with and someone you can feel free with. There is a likelihood that with other people you might put on a facade and not be your true self. But with a friend, there are fewer inhibitions, if none at all. So you're not worried, इसको what will he say or think, उसको बुरा तो नहीं लगेगा, मेरे बारे में क्या सोचेगा. You're absolutely open. So that kind of openness and freedom is probably what is integral to friendship. That trust, and you know that you will be accepted.
So, like, has this definition of a friend for you has changed over a period of time? Like, what you used to believe when you were young, and what do you believe now?
Well, I have never defined friendship. आपने अभी पूछा इसलिए I've tried to frame it into a sentence. So
We can actually differentiate by the type of friends or the class of friends you had when you were young.
I've not consciously gone looking for friends.
Yeah, right. But there's something like ki this is the, I think we are able to define these things like vibes and energy right now. But I believe that this is something which has been into the existence of our life right from very beginning.
Correct.
So in the early years also of our life, there was certain energy we could, get attracted to, or we attract ourselves. And right now, as when we have changed as a person or evolved as a person, now we attract a different kind of energy, different kind of energy, different kind of people. So have you felt that when you were young, you used to have a different kind of individuals around you, and right now, or you liked certain different kind of individuals when you were young?
I don't know about the energy bit, but I do feel more comfortable with certain people than with some others. So that is definitely there. But then, in my opinion, I approach people in the same way.
Like you were when you stayed.
So first meeting, I believe I'm the same with everyone. And then over a period of time, I believe it is usually the others who have taken the initiative to include me in their group. So I have never taken that first step. So I feel it has always been the goodness of the others who took me in.
And let's talk about this thing. Like when you didn't think about anything else, and then you finally decided कि चलो अब teaching करके देखते हैं. एक पॉइंट ऐसा भी आया होगा सर कि जब when you used to think कि is this something that you actually want to do in life or not, because this was not something that you consciously had in your mind since years कि नहीं मुझे टीचर ही बनना है. So was there a thought or was there a period in between when you were facing some sort of turmoil कि ये करना है भी कि नहीं आगे?
I guess I've never felt that I don't want to be a teacher anymore. कभी ऐसा नहीं लगा कि बहुत हो गया, लेट मी डू समथिंग एल्स, इसमें मज़ा नहीं आ रहा है या इसमें वो फुलफिलमेंट नहीं है और देयर इज नो सेटिस्फैक्शन, मे बी आई शुड डू समथिंग एल्स, explore something else, do something else. I probably have never felt that way. There have been moments of lots of frustration, but then I've never even considered quitting.
अच्छा, we have never reached to that stage कि जहाँ पे लगे कि नहीं, आई एम आस्किंग मतलब मेरे इसमें तो हुआ है आई गेस बहुत बार. मतलब आई थिंक इन द पास्ट फ्यू years I have been rethinking so many. I don't know what's the reason. It's obviously the reason is something in me only, doubting that whether I want to continue this or not. Because random things come in mind, frustration are there in some instances. But you have never.
It could be because again, as normally जो education के बारे में बात करते हैं, और when we talk about the role of teachers, the onerous responsibility that you have, you're building the nation and you're molding future citizens and it's a noble profession and all that, probably I've not seen my profession or my job as that.
So you don't define it like that.
So I don't know if I've really had a huge impact on students either. It's just that, and again, I probably enjoy being with the kids. Probably I would not have stayed. I would not have even if I'd become a lecturer in a college, I probably would have quit. But it's the age group that I'm working with, probably class 6 to class 12. उससे छोटे बहुत मुश्किल हो जाते हैं. I started with 4, 5.
You did start. How was it?
They're a completely different lot. 6, 7 maybe. But this is that age group which I kind of gel with easily. And it is these interactions which give me that satisfaction, that joy that I feel I might not get elsewhere. So I cannot imagine myself doing a desk job or even a marketing kind of a job which requires a lot of traveling. So I've kind of found my niche, my space where I'm extremely comfortable.
That is the same thing which keeps me also going.
Which may be a bad thing.
Bad thing?
I don't know, looking at how things are changing.
Like what is, as you have mentioned, changing. So what changes have you found, are visible to you over these years?
First of all, I believe the generation gap is increasing with each year. When I started my career, the first set of students I was tutored to at Assam Valley, I taught 4, 5, 6, and I was tutor to the students of class 11. And these students were 5, maybe 6 years younger than me. And now there's an entire generation. So attitudes have changed. Probably the connect that those students felt in those days, that is diminishing. So today's students probably see me as an alien. So इनका time हो चुका है. Let's just bear him. Shayad.
Do you believe that the teaching is a profession which is meant for the people who are experienced?
Experience does help. But then
that connect which you are talking about,
that could be natural also. Experience does make things easier. You know what to expect. Often, not always. So, but maybe I did not get your question.
No, maybe like the experience matters in the thing ki, do you believe that the young people who are going to come into this particular stream or this particular field sector are always going to lack one thing or other in while we are trying to impart that level of education? into our young ones. So they are not going to be, as serious about the things that we need to impart as
As a senior teacher might?
as a senior teacher might. Not really.
I believe there are individual differences. So there could be a senior teacher who is not happy being a teacher, and surely this person will not be able to do as much as a young fresher would, who is really passionate about whatever she's doing.
And do you believe that this profession is actually going to be more beneficial or benefited if more passionate people enter into this?
I mean, any profession for that matter.
No, because like I have heard, there are certain professions in which we do not require the passion to be there, because there are certain things which are boring and monotonous. So considering the thing that even we are going to teach the same thing years after years after year, so it's less about the passion and more about how easily you are able to grasp those book things, learnings one after another, and then you are able to recall them while you are teaching in the class. That is the main thing. So if you are good in those things, and even if you're not passionate, you will be able to do it.
I guess when it comes to teaching, many individuals are managing teaching in this manner. It's often a fallback option, or I often hear people saying that they wanted to do something else, things did not work out, and so they ended up teaching. So it was not their first option, not even what they wanted to do, but it is something that they can manage. So maybe they would not be as happy as probably I am with what I'm doing. So if you're constantly seeking something else, you will not be satisfied, and if you're not satisfied, you'll probably not be able to do justice to what you're doing either.
Right. So, acha, switching on to this particular thing. First of all, define education. What is education for you? Like, for me, I will tell you for me it is. For me, it is something that if you are well mannered and if you are able to give all the learnings, maybe in a not in the entire manner, but थोड़ा बहुत भी उसका कुछ अच्छी चीज सोसाइटी में कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकते हो, then I will consider that you are educated. Doesn't matter that कि हो सकता है आप सिर्फ 8th class तक पढ़े हो, 10th class तक पढ़े हो, but you are able to do something good out of it. That means you will be considered as educated. So, like, according to you, what do you think is the education is?
Education to me also is not only about qualifications and definitely not about marks, but it is largely to do with the kind of person that you become. So you may be highly qualified, but if you are unable to be nice to another person or be responsible for what you're doing, or you're unwilling to think about it, then such a thing would be pointless. I mean, you may call it education, but then no use of it.
And how do you connect education and money? किसको प्रेफरेंस दोगे सर आप, मतलब एजुकेशन को दोगे कि मनी को दोगे?
Education defined as learning to be a better human and knowing your potential, knowing yourself, I would value that more than money.
Then money.
But often, probably nowadays, you see education as a means to earn money. So right from in schools also, look at students or parents or other educators also, you look at how I would score better so that I get into a good college, and from there I
Get a good
do
job.
all those things so that I can get a good job and I make money.
But there are people who are making money without being formally educated.
Correct.
तो मनी को अपन ऊपर रख सकते हैं क्या एजुकेशन से?
So if you ask me about money, I feel money is necessary, money matters, but then money could be a means to many things and not the end in itself. So if I were to make money my sole objective, probably I will not be really healthy in my life. So I need money definitely, and money so that I can fulfill some basic needs, probably a little more than that, but not beyond that. So if it turns into greed for money, then there is definitely a problem.
And these things, when you see people going continuously towards one particular thing in their life, the money holds the biggest part, और उसके बाद फिर वो उसी चीज़ की रेट रेस में लगी जाते हैं, they are not getting into depth of anything. So do you think that because this is something which is coming out of our education system itself, कि वहीं से हम कर रहे हैं, we are drawing all the curriculums and all those things in the manner in which it is going to be preparing the children for the rat race they are going to face in the real life. So do you think that this is the psychology that we should be maintaining around? Is it advantageous in any manner?
I did not.
मतलब अपना एजुकेशन सिस्टम भी ऐसे ही चलता है कि आप एक एक करके यू आर गोइंग टू मेक द चिल्ड्रन better for the rat race that they are going to face in the coming years or in the times of the struggle. But this is something without getting into depth of what we are teaching them or what do we actually want to teach them. So it's all about earning the living, getting in the race, promotion, earning money, earning and making wealth. तो ये जो अपना process है, do you think this is good for the society as we are moving forward?
No, definitely not.
Definitely.
Definitely not. I mean, I feel so. What I would call education is also finding meaning in what you're doing. So if I'm studying a subject in class, it ideally should be because I'm curious to know. I want to make myself better somehow through what I'm learning. I am eager to learn about the world around me. If it is only about getting more marks, it ends up becoming just transactional. So whatever will get me better marks, I would be willing to do that. And probably that later on corresponds to life also. So in any profession, I might focus more on what will get me more money than probably satisfaction or a sense of fulfillment in what I'm doing, or developing a meaningful relationship with the people I'm working with or the work that I'm doing. It is definitely likely to happen.
And when I asked you about these things and about things you like, the movies, you told me that you are a big fan of Matrix. It's like, बताओ सर कि आपको क्या पसंद है मैट्रिक्स में? मतलब I watched it because you are
right.
because you referred it, so I watched it. I went through it. मतलब मैंने अभी first part देखा उसका, and second one I'm there somewhere. But first part also there were so many things.
So Matrix was mind blowing. And not just the special effects and all that, but that whole concept of how human beings or have been taken over by machines, and everything around us is something that we are only imagining. I mean, that whole idea was in a way partly disturbing also. So even right now, how can I be sure that I'm actually having this conversation with you and not really imagining it? I mean, after all our experiences are just chemical reactions in the brain and electrical impulses. So if you figure a way out to provide the brain that, so how do you know? How do you?
When I watched it, when I was into so many philosophies that were being discussed among the characters in that. तो उसमें एक I think when the Morpheus get caught in the first part by Agent Smith. So Agent Smith mentions that he gives a declaration about what he feels about the human race. है ना? आपको याद आया होगा. हाँ, yes, like we are depicting the similar feature as being depicted by another organism on this planet, which is virus, that we move from one place to another, consuming everything which is there in the surrounding, and then so it's kind of like we are disease for this planet. So do you believe that that is something to be true in a manner?
It does show us the mirror. We tend to believe that we are the supreme race and we are somehow more important than anyone and everything around us. So even if we are thinking of how if something goes bad with planet Earth, nothing to worry, we will settle on Mars. I mean, are we really so important? I mean, what have we really accomplished? So probably that does make sense. I mean, what has been our contribution? I mean, we are of course trying to make our lives comfortable, which we have succeeded in, but we have paid a price for that also. But a greater price has been paid by the planet, other forms of life who have not benefited in the least. So,
But that is, I believe that is how the humans are made. Like we are made with a hole in our heart. That hole cannot be filled by anything, I guess. So it's that endless desire to want more. And even if we are doing something which has completely settled all our wants so far, we'll always reach for something better. So that endless drive, and that is what is consuming not just us, but I think the planet also. So the question comes that do we have the right to consume as fast as we are consuming each and everything?
I believe there's this quote by Mahatma Gandhi that the world has enough to satisfy everyone's needs, but not everyone's greed. So, this overwhelming desire, when it becomes greed, then probably we begin to destroy what's around us. But maybe that gradual evolution would provide us what we need. The thing is, are we willing to be satisfied with what we have? Why do we have to want more than what we need? So, probably learning to, you earlier spoke about money. I never got any pocket money when I was in school. It was a middle class family. I had everything I needed. Probably slightly more than that also. But in school we used to have this canteen. Lalit Bhaiya ke hot dog bade famous hote the. So, uh, but then I would have those hot dogs only on special occasions, unless it is somebody else's birthday. Yeah, ऐसा कुछ होता है. But for me, it was usually on birthdays. Parents would say, ये ले लो बच्चों को, friends को party कुछ करना है, ऐसा कुछ करना है. But otherwise, I had no regular income in the form of any pocket money. College maybe my father used to send me money for the college fee along with a little extra. And somehow that extra was enough. I don't think I ever had to call up asking for more money. So probably, and it must not have been intentional on their part, but what I learned out of this was to live within my means. And probably I learned to be satisfied with what is there.
This movie Ludo, and in which there is this phrase, it is difficult to be happy in less money, but it is impossible to be happy with more money.
More money.
Believe that to be true. Like ज़्यादा पैसों में खुश रहना तो नामुमकिन है.
Because you'll keep wanting more. It's never enough. So if you take that first step for a little more, then there is no stopping you. It'll never be enough. But when you accept, काफी है. So as an educator also, probably that is what gives me satisfaction. I don't have a bucket list or a goal to achieve. I sometimes feel I've already arrived.
You feel that you
कहीं
are
जाना
right.
ही नहीं है तो
So
I'm
like
happy where
how
I am.
does that drive your life कि जब आपको लगता है कि you've already arrived to the destination where you wanted somewhere कि तब
Wanted का तो नहीं पता, but
तो कभी कुछ तो सोचा होगा ना इतना गोल है, this is something that I need to achieve, maybe wealth wise कि इतना तो होना चाहिए. तो वो अपना when you are saying कि I've arrived, so that means कि how does it drive your life? अब क्या बचता है? ऐसा लगता है कि
whether it is wealth or anything else, I guess I have been fortunate enough to not have experienced a period of want. कभी कमी ऐसी experience नहीं करना पड़ा है कि I've desperately wanted something and probably I was short of money या opportunities. I probably have been blessed in that way, that the minimum requirement, probably a little more than the minimum requirement, has always been there. So I've never had to struggle so much for anything, whether it's money or anything. So probably that's how I've sort of always been in that space, that
ये माइंडसेट कैसे आता है सर? मतलब कि जब मैंने आपको जैसे अभी भी देखा, लाइक when we are still talking, so you are not so much driven into money also, and then you're not into like keep desperately, wanting to do something. So ये कैसे? Is it something that you were built with? कि by born you
I've
are like
not intentionally, consciously done anything.
this is something which was
Hmm.
you
See,
inherited or something.
I'm not talking about becoming a monk कि मुझे पैसा चाहिए ही नहीं, पैसा
But you are
तो
okay with
महल
whatever
है.
you
I'm
have.
not. That's
हाँ.
not what I'm saying. पैसा चाहिए और I'm comfortable with what I'm earning.
ये कैसे आया? मतलब ये कुछ ऐसा था कि that was something imparted in you right from the early age, or you have seen what money does or the being over ambitious does in certain things. Like what?
Maybe in this case, I'm not trying to avoid any pitfalls or I'm not trying to avoid something because I don't want to end up there. It's probably what I've seen around, experienced around me, probably how my parents were. So it's probably.
And how are you this calm also? That you're always so calm, you're always at ease. मैंने गुस्सा करते हुए आपको तो आज तक तो देखा नहीं.
वो किसमें अवेंजर्स में है ना, हल्क बोलता है I'm always angry.
हाँ, अच्छा वो वाला part.
So, no, to be honest, I probably am. I do appear calm and happy, and which is true also. It is not again something that I'm pretending to be. So, but then there have been moments when I just flip. I mean, and you should ask the students in my class.
That you flip.
Yes, I mean, sometimes the weirdest thing would happen, and I would stay as calm and smiling as I am right now. But then sometimes I can be really unpredictable. I sometimes believe that I do have an anger problem. Sometimes
I don't think anyone who knows you, even if your students are also asked that you have an anger problem, they will say,
ask them.
I should ask them.
And there have been a number of occasions when I feel that, I mean, anger is again probably that emotion where you begin to lose control. So I'm not very happy whenever, any time that I've been angry, I've never been happy with that. And I've always wanted to not give in to that. It sort of consumes you, takes over you. I want to be in control. Probably that's one thing. I want to be in control of myself. And when I get angry, whenever that happens, those are moments when I feel that I have let loose of myself. I mean, I am no longer in control, and that's not a happy place to be in for
That's
me.
not.
But then, probably again, those chemical reactions or those electrical impulses, which I am still not able to get a hold of. तो गुस्सा तो आता है and silly things ट्रैफिक में भी आ जाता है.
ट्रैफिक में तो बहुत आता है.
वो तो I try to avoid not to go out in the evening especially. तो क्लास में तो फिर 30-40 बच्चे हैं and then
बच्चों के इसमें तो आ ही जाएगा.
आ ही जाता
है. कई बार लगता है बच्चों के इसमें तो.
Then even while I do know and believe that it is not really going to help. So if you really want to bring about change or you really want to get across what is, if anything is going to work, it is if I remain calm and talk to them and tell them why it is wrong or what should be done. That is likely to have a better result than my erupting as a volcano. But then,
and what about your religious belief?
I believe religion has to be something personal. I believe organized religions have benefited in a good way, but they have largely created more trouble than the benefits that they have provided people. But as the feeling of community, belonging, togetherness, support, all that is nice with organized religions. But then the moment it begins to others people,
when you get into their space.
So when you begin to believe that all those who belong to this religion are mine, everyone else is wrong and they are others, and you need to, I don't know, see them as different, probably the problem begins there. So I have no issues with people believing in God. I have no issues with
And to
people
what
not
extent do
believing in
you
God.
believe in God?
As a kid, I was extremely religious.
What changed?
Not so much now. This again happened while I was in college, and I had
कॉलेज
friends.
ने बहुत कुछ कर
कॉलेज
दिया
ने बहुत कुछ किया.
दिल्ली ने कर दिया क्या सर दिल्ली ने
दिल्ली कॉलेज. So school में भी I had friends who belonged to various religions. पर स्कूल टाइम में तो it never was a thought in our minds कि कौन से religion का है क्या है. It never occurred to me. College में भी I had friends who belonged to different religions, and I could perhaps, because we stayed in a hostel, I could closely observe them, and I found out that some of them did not belong to my religion, but they were equally religious, and they were equally convinced, and they were equally sincere, if not more, about their beliefs. So it made me question, मेरा अकेले का इतना special तो हो नहीं सकता है. Either one of us has to be right and the others wrong, or all of us should be right. I don't know. तो फिर
But
मुझे लगा
at the young age, you are always like that. No? You're always following certain things or things that you have been told over the
Correct.
years.
It must have been the family atmosphere.
Family atmosphere, the religious part and everything.
Yes.
और आप बहुत ही passionately follow करते हो उस चीज़ को without even questioning it. But it's always the later years of your life that you start questioning things. So it's something kind of like कि maturity आ गई इतनी या disbelief आ गया some sort of. तो वो एक चीज़ है जो है.
I believe it's how your world expands, and the more you see the world, you find out that it's much bigger than what you had earlier imagined. तो शुरू में बचपन में स्पेस और वो वर्ल्ड बहुत छोटा सा होता है, so the influence of those nearby is extremely strong. And when you let that, there's this poem called Childhood in class 11 के syllabus में. It's written by Marcus Nathan, and this poet wonders when exactly he stopped being a child and grew up. So he offers a few possibilities. The first of those is 11 साल का हो गया, 12, 13, 15 साल का हो गया, then I stopped being a child. But then he does not spend much time on that. He immediately moves on to the next stage, जो आपने अभी बताया, becoming rational. You start questioning those things that you believed blindly once upon a time. पहले बोला कि ये religion सही है, follow ये करो, and you did not question that. Parents ने बोला है सही होगा, you follow that. But then a stage comes when you start questioning those things that you've been told. And when you feel that you do not have convincing answers, you decide to move on, leave those beliefs behind. That is probably phase one of growing up. And that next phase is when you realize that there's a lot of hypocrisy in the world. People say so many things which make sense, but they themselves don't follow. जैसे हम बोलते हैं peace, शांति बहुत important है, there should be world peace, या global warming हो रही है, we should protect, but then our actions don't match those things.
Don't match.
And then final stages, you become an individual. You take responsibility for your beliefs, and you realize that you are an individual. You can have your own thoughts. You can make your own mind about things. That is probably that final stage when you've really grown up.
But when you are teaching, I think a certain class of people, or when you're addressing huge mass, the hypocrisy, I think to an extent is very much required, because you cannot have done all those things that you are actually asking the masses to do. So वो hypocrisy becomes the part of, I don't know, leadership बोलो आप उसको, something that you want to convey to the masses. और फिर वो बड़े लोगों में तो वो hypocrisy रहती है. वो सही भी है नहीं, आपको पता है कि आप perfect नहीं हो, but you want your offsprings or the successors or the upcoming generations to be at least aspire to be that. तो वहाँ hypocrisy तो थोड़ी बहुत.
Then you probably are being patronizing there कि भाई I know what is better, even though I could not do it, but I will teach you.
That doesn't make it any wrong, does it?
I guess who you become is also a personal journey, and we learn from maybe the mistakes also that we make, especially with Spider-Man में है ना, with great power comes great responsibility, greater responsibility. So if you are in a position where you are influencing such a large number of individuals, I mean, you better
know that you are
become
impact
better.
is, yes.
So I believe hypocrisy can be dangerous because anytime, so if I follow someone, you are my ideal, you have taught me so many things, and the moment I discover the hypocrisy in you, I will be at a complete loss. But then जैसे आपका शो का नाम ही है flawed फनकार, I mean that itself is so real. So when I
We are
know
actually
that,
looking for the imperfections in
yes,
the
yes,
right.
that is also something that attracted me towards your show. So, फनकार का तो पता नहीं, but flawed, I so
Which I believe that each one of us is
yes.
in a manner.
So
It's just that
instead
are
of,
we going to hide it or what we are going to do with it? Because है ना, अभी एक किसी ने मतलब मुझे रील भेजी थी कुंतागी करके, है ना. कुंतागी was about this. It's a Japanese word that when there is something broken, and you don't try to make it again look the similar manner. You are going to fix it, but you are going to fix it with the marks or the scratches or the scars clearly visible that yes, it was broken. And rather making it clearly visible, you are also going to make it shine. So you are going to use a shining glue or something which
Gold.
is gold, which is going to make it like you are embracing those scars.
correct.
So that is what the imperfections are about. Means we are okay knowing that we are not, always going to be all perfect. यहाँ हमसे better कोई भी नहीं है. There are going to be flaws in each one of us, and there are going to be many, and they are going to be past also, memories and everything. But we are okay having them. I think that
Right.
knowing that there is also a good and bad things in you, and you are accepting it yourself, because that is how the world is also going to accept it. First, you have to accept that you are not all perfect.
And maybe this is what is going to have greater impact on others also, because if I feel that you are perfect and you are asking me to do a few things, I might always make an excuse out of it because I'm not like you. I will never be able to do all those things. But if I know that you are not perfect, I'm not perfect, but you believe in certain things, they make sense to me, let me also try that.
With now this particular thing, your trip to Chandratal Lake, you told me that it is one of your most memorable trip.
This happened when I was in college, and college had a hiking club. And perhaps one thing that I am not happy about is that I did not join hiking club earlier. I joined the hiking club in class in my third year, and this was the first trek that I went for, and
First trek ki Chandratal.
first trek directly Chandratal Lake tha, and it was something that I had not even imagined. पिकनिक पर तो गए हैं हम पहले भी स्कूल कॉलेज से भी आई been on picnics, we went to Shimla and all those places, but I very soon realized that I mean, not the picnicking partying kind. So I was with friends, but it was, I mean, not me. This was a small group. I believe we were just 7-8 of us who went for this trek. और बहुत सुना था, but I had no clue what to expect. So
It was not. It wasn't something that you once dreamt of. Going ki Chandratal or something.
ठीक है पहाड़ पे चढ़ने जा रहे हैं मजा आएगा and people had said nice things about going trekking and I had already been sold out to the idea of being alone in the mountains and भीड़ भाड़ से दूर. I thought this is something that I might want to experience. तो वो तो था, but then I was not prepared for how amazed I was. कितना अच्छा है ये मैंने expect नहीं किया था. We started trekking from Manali and then I believe today trekkers or climbers, these tourists are not allowed to pitch tents there. But then we had pitched our tents right at the shore of
At that time, it was possible.
Chandratal Lake. And then this is exactly as it is described. The lake and the mountains, they change hue. हर एक घंटे में it looks different. That was breathtaking. Again, the mountains, the solitude, Himalayas में जाओ. I mean, it's an experience that I believe everyone should have at least once.
So it's just that experience, or the traveling part is also very much important. You travel to any place and you get experience about
I believe mountains are special.
mountains are special.
Yes. So traveling is no doubt a huge learning experience among so many other things, and people should definitely travel. I mean, I've wanted to travel a lot, but usually these trips end up becoming more like picnics and sightseeing tours. But I again seek solitude when I'm traveling. So it happened there. It was a small group, but most of the time you're walking all by yourself, you're looking around your own pace, and then admiring the beauty. And then I guess it's the mountains.
So like all the time you're saying that you enjoy that particular part, of that solitude and everything. Then what are your thoughts on having life partner also? Like you're married with family.
While I don't really believe that, I don't know, maybe it is, they say marriages are made in heaven and all that. So
You don't believe in that.
I don't know about that. But if I look at my own marriage, it probably is. It's a purely arranged marriage. And Regina was the third person that I met. Uh, but she had already seen a number of prospective grooms and already rejected them, and things did not work out. And I don't know why she ended up saying yes to me. But then it has been really good. And for a long time, uh, I mean, your question is not ill placed. I had no intentions of marrying. I felt
Like you're complete
I
in
am
your own sense.
comfortable. I'm okay, and I mean, there's no point. I would be happier living on my own, and it did not have any appeal. Once again, I gave in to my mother's wish.
But you are happy after doing that, right?
Yes, I mean it's probably been better than any friendships, because friendships sort of were limited in scope. School wale friends say I'm still in touch with a few of them. College wale friends say. In fact, I spoke to a few of them very recently after some 20 years, and it was like we were back in college again. But things have still changed. But then a life partner, as you said, marriage is definitely special if you can find a friend. So जो मैंने पहले कहा था, that kind of comfort, the feeling that you will be accepted no matter what, you can be as flawed and yet forgiven, or at least accepted in that way. So if you find that kind of a companionship and friendship, then I believe there's nothing more you can ask for. So it was again probably some kind of uh, what do I say, grace or good fortune or whatever, that things fell into place.
And do you believe in the statement that you always need someone to complete you?
Movies tell us so. So
But have you like
uh, see, I personally have been uh, aromantic to a fault. I'm not that roses or gifts or, I mean, so I have again not gone out seeking that other half.
other half?
जैसा आप बता रहे हैं कि, so I have not been in search for anyone. I did not feel unfulfilled or less because there's no one else in my life.
So you don't
But then-
believe that your personality would have been, different if you didn't, got married or something, shaped into something different.
I don't know how much I've changed, because I probably fortunately have been given that space. So Regina allows me to be who I am or who I would like to be. So, and I hope I am also able to give her that space. So, and I believe that is also crucial to the success of any marriage. As I said, in friendships also, a friend does not really go out of the way to change you into someone else. आप गलत भी कर रहे हो तो ये friends in a way try to support you instead of trying to give you a sermon जो कि बाकी दुनिया करती है. A friend in a way stands by you. स्कूल्स में भी ये देखा ना, दो बच्चे मस्ती कर रहे हैं, a really good friend probably will not contribute to these people getting into trouble. But over time, you learn from your own experiences and all that. So maybe in that sense, uh, marriage probably is not about compromise, but और tolerance भी शायद थोड़ा ज़्यादा है, but more of you definitely have to make some adjustments, but more of giving space to each other, accepting each other, being yourself with the other person, not trying to change the other person.
But I believe, sir, like I've not known you since long, but just तरीके के आप हो, I don't think it would have been problem for you anyway because you have an adjusting nature. But what if someone with a very strong personality, and two people from the strong, having the same strong personality, they get into uh, in any relationship or something? Do you think they need to make a lots of changes in yourself? Because when you are adjusting nature, वो okay, वो ठीक हो जाता है. But I think the compromise वाला part जो है.
So which is why I said earlier, I did not see any point in marriage. I mean, why should I make those changes, or why should anybody else make changes to be a part of my life? And usually the society we live in, it is expected that the girl would marry, leave her family and all that, and come and settle with the husband. These expectations are there. So what's the point? Why should anyone do all that for me? मतलब मुझसे ऐसा क्या मिल जाएगा? I mean, so plus for me also, I did not find any. So as you said, if there are two opposing personalities, and why are these people going to such efforts to compromise, adjust, दो पहिए की तरह साथ में चलना है, मतलब इतना क्या जरूरत है? So yeah, so again, in my case, I'm glad things worked out.
Let's talk about this thing, sir. Men's mental health. अब ये टर्म आपने भी सुना ही होगा, बहुत बार ऐसा आता ही है ना? And I don't know, maybe not the marriage exactly, but the things the men face. I'm not saying that women doesn't face it, but the men's mental health is something that is not something that looked as one of the main stage thing कि आप उसको बोल नहीं पाते हो कि यार ये मेन चीज़ है, ये चीज़ है जिस पे बात होनी चाहिए, है ना? हाउ टू रिजॉल्व इट, यहाँ ये चीज़ एग्जिस्ट भी करती है, पीपल आर नॉट ready to accept its existence also. So do you believe that there is something called,
as you said, things are beginning to change, and that's probably for the better. With men probably it happens because बचपन से ही बोलते हैं boys don't cry and all that, so एक वो शायद pressure रहता है that you, if nothing else, you have to pretend to be strong. And among friends also, if you try to talk about emotions and feelings, you are likely to be mocked. So you hold on all those emotions, and then there is a general expectation that you are the provider, you've got to be strong at all the time. I'm sure it takes a toll. But then having said that, I believe society, the world has not been even half as terrible as it has been to women.
right?
So no matter what, we cannot say कि भाई हमारी problems भी उतनी ही है, they are there. So probably I would feel that when especially when you're talking about mental health or any problem for that matter, we should put those lenses of gender aside. So mental health is important, and irrespective of the gender, one should accept if there is a problem and deal with it. So especially for men, I believe it would be healthy if one is more open, more expressive, and not carry the burden of being a man. I believe that will make their lives better, our lives better. Not to uh, nowadays, I believe children's mental health, teenagers also are going through a tough time.
Tough time.
Especially as educators, we probably need to understand that when we interact with students, they are also human beings, and we have absolutely no idea what they are going through.
So, but the case wasn't same at our time, I guess.
Uh, Probably there is a lot more of mollycoddling from the parents also. हमारे time पर तो if we often say this among teachers, हमारे time पर if we had made a mistake or if we said something, if the teacher scolds us and we tell at home teacher ने आज डांटा है तो घर पे उल्टा डबल डांट पड़ेगी. But nowadays it's not how things work and we are always treading cautiously. Punishments नहीं, I'm not saying punishment अच्छी चीज़ है, but still uh, probably it made a person stronger, more resilient perhaps. Uh, and probably we've spent a lot of time with real human beings. So today, while there is a lot more of connectivity in terms of social media and the uh, gadgets that we have, but still we are not really interacting with real people. I mean, we are interacting with real people, but we are always behind a screen
Behind the screen.
and we always project a certain image. But when you are talking face to face, one to one, there is a lot that happens subconsciously as well. And all that leg pulling and all that, not the bullying kind of thing, but that interaction probably somehow makes us, as I said, more resilient,
More
stronger.
resilient, right.
And it's probably less, which is making people more sensitive. And then there are all kinds of stresses, anxiety, competition,
Times
the
have
rat race
changed.
which you mentioned earlier, and there's so much that you have to do. हमारे टाइम फ्री टाइम ही कितना होता था.
बहुत ज़्यादा.
So दूरदर्शन पे वीकेंड पर एक फिल्म आ गई तो आ गई. शुरू में तो दूरदर्शन भी नहीं था. And we had so much free time to think, reflect, and today there's absolutely no free time.
So that in today's time, the world is actually continuously putting their opinion and their impression of you, their impression of the world upon you. And
There's
at
so
that
many
time,
eyes on you all the time.
Yes, so many eyes on. And at that time, I think all these things were not there. You were so among yourself कि आपको ये सब चीजें नॉन एग्जिस्टेंट सी लगती थी कि दूसरे लोग हैं भी हैं, उनके ओपिनियन तो बहुत दूर की बात हो गई.
So today you're probably always performing.
Always
Always
performing.
performing. And that adds a strain.
Coming to the last part, sir, two highs of your life.
Two highs of
हाँ,
my life.
मतलब टू टॉप मोस्ट हाइज कि जब आपको सबसे बेस्ट फील हुआ हो अपनी लाइफ में, एंड टू लोज ऑफ योर. पहले हाइज की बात करते हैं अपन.
This is not just one moment, the first one that I'm talking about, but becoming a father has been an extremely special feeling. ऐसा कोई बहुत overwhelming सा नहीं रहा है, but it's nothing like I had experienced or imagined it would have been.
Overall journey of.
Yes, that whole journey. So that has been extremely special. दूसरा Chandratal Lake, if I talk about one. This was again on the trek to Chandratal. We had stopped at some random place for the night stay, and that was the first time I had seen the galaxy, Milky Way, and that was breathtaking. I had read about the Milky Way and all that, I'd seen it in pictures, but I had not ever imagined that you could actually see it with your naked eye. So again, there was this friend who asked me to look up. I thought this was going to be some kind of a prank. I would look up and he would throw something at me or something. I looked up and I was not prepared for that sight. So that
moment was kind of magical.
Yes, it was magical.
And now two lows.
Okay, two lows. Not major events as such, but usually within classes, during classes at times, if probably I overreact, maybe I am also extremely sensitive, but when I feel that maybe there is a little bit of ego also that is involved here, but when I feel that I'm not getting the kind of response that I have worked for or that I've expected, it could be in terms of discipline, it could be even in terms of attention or participation from the students, at times I am disappointed. So if I can consider that a low.
This thing this tells me that you are an optimistic person because you are so ready to give two highs है ना without being prepared for it. But जैसे आप two lows के बारे में सोच रहे हो आपके दिमाग में
सोचना पड़ रहा है.
सोचना पड़ रहा है.
Or
अच्छी बात है
maybe
सर.
as I said earlier also, my life has provided me all those things that I've generally wanted. So ऐसा कोई बहुत वो नहीं रहा है कि बहुत deeply sad रहा हूँ. But then probably I accept things as part and parcel of life. Generally, probably also because I've not had very high expectations of myself or of others.
So
इस case
expectations
में
are wrong like होना.
हाँ तो इस केस में probably because I expect, I create the possibility of being let down. In most other cases शायद expectations नहीं है तो वो होता नहीं है. Now whether having expectations is bad, I don't think so. As long as you're willing to accept that they will not be fulfilled always, and you don't force your expectation on others, especially other people, maybe then it is fine. You can have your expectations of yourself, but expecting others to be in a certain way or projecting your expectations, forcing it on others, nahi.
So even in your for your lows also you didn't mention the stroke that you had like. तो वो भी अपने लिए बहुत नॉर्मल फेस था क्या कि ऐसा you were accepting that part also.
हाँ, I mean, I did not even realize there was something really so serious. तो हॉस्पिटल गए, इवन व्हेन दे सेड इनको तो हार्ट अटैक आ चुका है, सेड ठीक है एडमिट हो जाओ. आई वाज स्टिल थिंकिंग अबाउट अच्छा कल तो संडे है, स्कूल मिस नहीं होगा.
हाँ ये बेटर हो गया, ये अच्छी
तो
बात
ठीक है संडे चले जाते हैं. तो फिर मंडे को मे बी it was during the angioplasty. Otherwise hospital में जितने टाइम था it never occurred to me. While I was lying on the table on the OT बेड पर जब when the angioplasty was happening, उस टाइम पर एक मुझे जरूर लगा था कि यार this could be the end. अब क्या? And I thought of family, some friends that I might have wanted to at least say a goodbye to. यार ये तो फाइनल हो सकता है. Otherwise it was absolutely normal. I never. So कई लोग बोलते हैं ना why me, मेरे साथ क्यों? Which is what many people have said to me. I mean, you've been fit and you take care of your health, or
I've seen you come,
no smoking, no
cycling to
drinking,
school.
cycling to school. You're absolutely fit. Why? I mean, unimaginable. मुझे कभी ऐसा नहीं लगा. हो गया तो हो गया, ठीक है. At least I survived.
So you are kind of an example, sir, कि जिसमें how does a man become an extraordinary being while leading an ordinary life also.
Extraordinary
Simplicity you are actually portraying, and the things that you are saying, मतलब stroke भी कोई ऐसी बड़ी चीज नहीं है, पैसा भी इतना important नहीं है.
I'm not trying to trivialize it, but again,
but you are normalizing all
की बात
these
कर रहे हैं.
things.
हाँ. I mean, I don't know how to make a big deal out of it. I got a lot of care. Good doctor, family took care of me, wife was with me. Got a lot of attention.
बस
Nice. अच्छा था. हॉस्पिटल में खाना भी अच्छा था.
Things men need. Okay, sir. I think we should sum up now. Anna, it was a pleasure talking to you, sir. And I've seen that there is possibility of so much good, even while maintaining an ordinary and normal life.
Very good. Thank you once again for considering me even as a potential candidate. So I initially thought अगर
You are natural, sir.
कुछ गड़बड़ होता है तो you can always begin afresh with episode 1, and maybe ये ठंडे बस्ते में.
I think I cannot do it any better. For the start, I think I started with the best, and that is good.
Thank you so much, and all the best. Let this be a good beginning to your new journey.
Let's hope.
yeah, I found it exciting. Part of my reason for saying yes, शायद वो heart attack के पहले होता तो I might not have agreed.
Okay.
So after that I thought
The things
ठीक है,
do
you
change
don't know
after
how long
that.
you are here, so this is a novel experience. It's probably also since I thought this could be a good opportunity to learn something about myself also. कोई नहीं तो कुछ थोड़ा
कोई नहीं,
attend-
आपकी जर्नी से हम लोग इतना सीख गए, and our viewer also will be able to.
You made me think about so many things. So yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, and all the best.